Hello everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be making another Halloween card. I'm going to be showing you a different kind of technique for making a background with a moon, but we're going to be using our Spookysaurus. Isn't he adorable? And we're also bringing in the Moon Layers stencil. There's lots of options for this right here on one stencil, so I love that. And then I've got some Distress Oxide spray and some Distress Spray Stain. We have a piece of watercolor cardstock. This is cut down to A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to tack down the mask for our moon, and I'm going to do this a little differently than I've done before. So I'm going to spray, this is the Distress Oxide spray. That one is the Seedless Preserves, and then we have our Villainous Potion, which is the spray stain. I love how dark it is. And I'm going to go back and forth. Now, because I'm using the Oxide spray, it kind of gets lost a little bit in there. So what you see there is not what it's going to end up being. I went ahead and started heat setting this. I don't go completely all the way, but I started heat setting this just a little bit. The reason for that is because I want to bring in the stencil and I want to put the moon layers on there. And I don't want to lose the detail that moon layer gives. Now, this can be done different ways without this kind of a stencil, but I love the detail of the stencil. So that's why we were going to try something a little bit different. I'm peeling away our mask. It's okay that it kind of goes in a little bit because I'm going to work with that. I want it to do that. And now I'm just going to go ahead and heat set this the rest of the way so I can bring in our moon layers stencil. So like I said, some of that detail of the spraying kind of gets lost in that background when you use Distress Oxide sprays, but I kind of like it. So that's not entirely dry. That's okay. I'm going to clean up my mess because I'm going to need that mask again. Just using some water, trying to do my best to clean everything off. I do have overspray on my stencil itself, but we can work with that as well. So I'm going to tack this down using a little bit of Post-it tape. And this is why you also want it to be a little bit dry because that's not really sticking. And I'm going to bring in some Distress inks. That first Distress ink is Shabby Shutters. And so I'm just going to put that all over that first part of our moon stencil. And then I'm going to bring in some Hickory smoke and do that over the top for our second part of the moon. So it just layers over it pretty nicely, pretty easy to line up. Tack it down again and then bring in that Hickory smoke. And I'm just using those brand new blending brushes. I really like those. They're so soft and they do a good job of picking up a lot of ink. So we'll just spread that all over there. That'll kind of deepen that moon area. And this looks fine the way it is, but I want to do some more to it. So I am going to clean up my mess and bring this back into my makeshift splatter box. I'm going to bring in a little ring that I have to prop up the mask so it's away from it's not right on top of where it was before. That way some of that can go underneath, and when I start spraying water, because all I'm doing right now is splatter, but when I start spraying water to get that to move, it'll spray into. At least that was the hope I was going for. It didn't entirely do that. But I'm going to pull this out and we're going to work with that too. So I'll just spray into it. I didn't want to lose, like I said, I didn't want to lose the detail of the moon. And surprisingly, I don't. So I'm moving that around. I just wanted some of that sky to kind of come into the moon and make it look kind of eerie. And so I'm going to move the water around a little bit, see if I can get that to move into the moon. And we're just going to see what comes of this. I end up really, really liking it. Now, as you can see, I obviously soaked it with color and water, but the end result is something that I'm really happy with. I really like how that moon just kind of, the edges of it look, I don't know, kind of distressed, I guess. So I'm bringing in water, just splats of water to add a little more depth and interest to our background. And then I'm also going to bring in our Trinity Gold palette and splatter some silver all over it. As you notice, I did put my mask back over the moon. I didn't want the silver to be on top of the moon. So I'll splatter that. I'm even going to go a whole step further, put this back into my makeshift splatter box with the mask, and we're going to use some Picket Fence Distress paint. So it's white, but because we used Distress Oxides and sprays and stuff, those white dots are going to pick up some of that color, so most of them are going to end up being almost pink, which is fine. That's fine with me. So I'll heat set that, And now that that's all dry, I need to add some grounding to it. So I'm going to bring back in those pieces of tape that I used earlier, and we're going to mask off an edge. And then that's where my black soot distress ink is going to come in, and I can make a ground. I have found that the distress ink, the black soot distress ink, is the best for covering pretty much everything. If you want it to be black, that is the color to go for. And then I'm just going to take some of that leftover color that's on my mat and just kind of edge up or frame my piece. So bring in some of that dark just to frame it all up. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. In my mind, I thought it was going to look a little differently, but I really, really like it. It's so fun to just play. All right, to save a little time, I did stamp my Spookysaurus onto some Express It cardstock using some blackout ink. And now I'm just using my Olo markers, which are an alcohol marker. And I'm just going to slap down my first color. I like to put down a wash of color, and then I'll bring in the next darker color for some of those areas. Doing my best to put those up on the screen for you. And then I'll add a little shadowing and shading with that same color where I think that might look good, and come back in with that 8.3 to blend that out just a tiny bit so it doesn't look like he has a mustache. And then I'll grab another darker color, the YG 8.7, and then I'm actually just going to leave that deep contrast there. I'm not going to blend that out. Bring in some OR 2.5 for our pumpkin, and then just another purple for the sucker. I don't even think I show the color. I'm going to bring in the matching die, tack that down with some mint tape, and run that through my die cutting machine. And I also stamped out the sentiment and die cut it as well. I'll bring in a gel pen for a couple of highlights on our little trick-or-treat basket, and then for his dots. And then I'm going to glue down our sentiment using my crafty glue friend, and then we'll do the same thing with our Spookysaurus. We'll put him right on top like he's walking to go trick-or-treating. I had already stuck down my panel to a base. Check out these trinkets. I wanted to show you that there are some little skulls in this particular set of trinkets. This is the Slate trinkets. There are a lot of different colors. I don't know if there are skulls in all of them, but there's also butterflies and other shapes, so it is a great mix to get. So I'm just going to tack those down using my pickup stick along with my crafty glue friend. And then once I have all those down, it's at this point that I decide to stamp on the inside, which I should have done before I put down my trinkets. It just would have been easier, but I don't always do that. So now we'll stamp out our Spookysaurus on the inside using some Villainous Potion Distress Oxide. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment that says Trick Rar Treat, just using a black pigment ink. And so I just think it's really cute. And there's even some little like emphasis lines. I'll stamp those around the rar. And then when we're done with that, that's going to finish off our card for today. I do love how this turned out. I hope that you enjoyed it too. If you did, please hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, big thank you for all the love and support that you guys give. You guys are amazing, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.